Hello, friends. Well, it's hard to believe that it has been almost 2 months since I signed off on our last morning announcement show of the previous school year. During that show, I promised you that we would work as hard as we can to learn everything we can to do whatever we can to reopen NDCL in August. And we have a plan that I'd like to share with you today. So let's go on inside and take a look. Before I get into the details of the plan that we've developed, I think it's important that I help you establish some context for why this plan is necessary in the first place. Obviously, we all know we're battling a common enemy, and that is the coronavirus pandemic. But we approach it and we battle it in different ways. How you may battle it personally and how you may battle it in your family, well, those things are going to look different than how we need to tackle it here in a school setting. What we're going to do in school is going to be different than what you do in your family life, and it may not be consistent with what you do in your personal life. But let me give you an example to help you demonstrate what I'm talking about. Everybody in the world would be concerned about fire safety. No one would want to get harmed or to die in a fire. And so fire safety is something everybody would agree is important. It's important in your house. It's important in a school building. In your house, I'm thinking it's a good idea that you would at least know how you would evacuate in the event that there were a fire in your home. And for some of your families, that has happened. And knowing how you're going to get out is an important thing to know. However, I'll bet there's not a single family in our NDCL community that does 10 fire drills a year in their home. And yet we do that in school every single year. And I'm entering now my 41st year as a school educator, and no one's ever said to me, Mr. Waler, I don't think fire drills are important. We know they're important in a school setting because we have so many more people clustered together. Population density in school is high, and so you need things like fire drills to keep everybody safe. In the same way, we're going to need some procedures about COVID-19 to keep everybody safe. They are not the same procedures you're going to use in your house, and I get that, but they are necessary in a school setting. So what are they going to look like? Well, they're basic in many ways. The first thing we're going to do is make sure that we vigilantly monitor everyone's symptoms. And that's really a responsibility that you have, to be mindful of your own health and to know the symptoms of COVID-19 so that if you think you're sick, if you're feeling sick, you stay home. A key way to monitor that, of course, is to be sure you're not running a fever. If you have a temperature of 100 degrees or more, you can't come to school. And we want to be sure that that is enforced. So we have spent the money to purchase temperature gauges, temperature monitors. They're very much like what you walk through in the airport, okay? Walk through it in various stores. They're looking for metal, or they're looking for shoplifting in an airport or in a store. I'm not looking for those things. But these devices will instantly record your temperature. You don't have to touch anything. You just walk through, and if you're under 100 degrees, you're fine. If you're over 100 degrees, it's going to flag you. We're going to ask you to step aside and visit the clinic, and we'll check you again to make sure you're okay. But if you have a fever, you'll need to go home. We want to be sensitive about that. You know, I would never do anything to make any student in this building feel uncomfortable. But you got to help me with this. If you got a fever, I shouldn't be the one to tell you that. You should know that when you get up in the morning. You should know that before you get in the car or on the bus to come to school. If I'm the first one telling you got a fever when you walk through that monitor, that to me seems a little odd. We can avoid that whole situation. But it's a safeguard. By having those monitors at the entrances, that's going to be a way, kind of a first line of defense, because the objective is to keep the virus out of the building. And if the virus does come into the building, reduce the likelihood that you might catch it. That's the whole ball game here, folks. That's what we're trying to do. Prevent it from entering the building, but if it does get in, reduce the likelihood that you or I will catch it. I'm in the high risk category. You're not, we all want to keep everyone safe. So, and you can look at it this way: some of these measures, hey, you're keeping Mr. Waler safe. I appreciate it, and I will do my part to keep you safe. So, monitoring your symptoms, a big important thing. Now, another phase of this is, well, I don't want this to happen, and I certainly don't wish it would happen, but it seems likely that some of us will probably be infected by COVID-19 as the year unfolds. And of course, if you are, you can't come to school, and it's clearly spelled out by the Centers for Disease Control how long you need to stay home. And that will all be shared with you, and your healthcare providers will help you with that. Your concern as a student will be, oh my gosh, if I'm quarantined because either I have COVID-19 or some member of my family has COVID-19, and therefore I will likely spread it to others, so I have to stay home from school. All of you are concerned about your schoolwork, and all of you always, no matter what, are worried about falling behind. So what we've done to help out with that situation is we've turned every classroom, or almost every classroom in this building, into a distance learning classroom. So that if you're home quarantined, if you're home sick, or if you're otherwise unable to come to school, you'd be able to watch a live stream of your classes following your normal block-by-block schedule. So if you're out, for 14 days, I know you don't want that to happen, but it might. You're not going to have to worry about falling behind and getting this big giant pile of makeup work. You'll be able to watch the classes live with the cameras that have been installed in the rooms. They're ceiling mounted. They cover the whole room. You can zoom in. They're so cool. You can have a classroom discussion with just a couple of your classmates. The teacher would zoom in on those two. You could join that group. In your English class, you're discussing a text. You're doing some peer editing. Whatever you're doing, you'd be able to do it live in real time thanks to this capability. That will take the pressure off you, because sometimes you're going to be quarantined not because you're sick, but because someone else in your family is, and you can't come to school because of that. This will ease your burden tremendously. So I'm thrilled with that development. And the cameras, the microphones are very, very cool. Now, a few other things in the plan that I want to highlight for you, just so that you know what we're doing and what we're working on. Obviously, cleaning and disinfecting, another important step. And in the event that the virus is in the building, we want to be sure we clean things, we want to be sure we disinfect things. So there'll be a regular procedure in each class, at the end of each block, how to be sure we're wiping down tabletops, other things that we've used during the course of a block, to make sure that they're good for the next person, so that you don't have to worry about catching the virus from, let's say, this tabletop, because I would have wiped it down before I sat down. I'll make sure it's good to go. Obviously, hand sanitizer. I think we got this stuff in 55-gallon drums. Okay, we've always had hand sanitizer dispensers in our classroom. Well, not always, but at least the last 10 years. So we'll use those. We'll also have other supplies available. We purchased many alcohol wipes, and that will be another way, especially for shared surfaces. I'm thinking keyboards. We'll talk about that in a minute, but that another way to keep you safe. So basic things, but we just need to do them religiously. We have to do them, in a ritual consistently, because we're trying, again, to build layers of safety. And we can do that together. This is one time where, as a community, we make the difference. Each one of us contributes to making it a safer place, so we prevent as many people as possible in this community from catching this deadly disease. We can do that. Simple cooperation will help a whole lot. Other things that we're doing, we've invested in electrostatic foggers so that high traffic areas, let's say the cafeteria, weight room, bathrooms, those will get disinfected every single day. Other areas, probably on a weekly schedule, they'll be disinfected. Remember, we're wiping things off multiple times during the day, but then we would fog the whole classroom. Let's say this room I'm in, maybe on a Friday night, we fog it so every surface would have the disinfectant applied to it. That would, again, another way to suppress the virus, make it less likely to be active, less likely to harm you or me. Of course, masks are going to be required. that comes as no surprise to you, and I'm sure you've already been looking for stylish ones that you want to wear. I have this great one here. This is made for me by our Allie Beth Courier.
This is just perfect. It matches my attire, makes me look great, helps me get ready for my photo shoot in Gentleman's Quarterly.
You're going to experiment different ones, different seasons of the year, different colors to match your uniform. I'll match your hair color, whatever you're going to do. But the mask, this is a non-negotiable item. We need to wear the mask to prevent the airborne droplets from possibly infecting somebody near you. Social distancing is another important dimension of our efforts to keep you safe. Again, it's a basic principle. If you're not as close to other people, you're not as likely to share the disease. The Centers for Disease Control, I've read many of their documents. One of them flatly stated that, the longer you're near a person and the nearer you are to the person, the more likely you are to potentially contract COVID-19 if that other person has it. Well, similarly, the farther away you are from a person and the less time you spend, the less likely you are to contract the disease if the other person is infected or if you were to share it with them. So social distancing is important. We're going to work on that together. Now, in some ways, this is going to make school life, I think, better for you because we're going to extend the amount of time for class changes, and we're only going to allow half of you at a time out in the hallway. So that will make for a spreading out. There won't be that, I like the NDCL community. It never bothers me to walk through that sea of humanity. Sometimes I feel like Moses, part the Red Sea as you walk down the corridor, and you guys are very kind to me as I do that. But we're going to have less of that because only half of you will be in the corridor at any given time. And the way we're going to manage that is we're going to, at class change times, we're going to say to folks, okay, those with even number lockers, you're going to go out. And after those kids are done and come back into their next classroom, then those with odd number lockers will go out to their lockers. So that'll be the way of doing it. I'm telling you that now, students, so that when you come in to select your lockers, if you want to be with your friends, well, you got to be with the even number friends, or in my case, I'd have odd friends anyway, so odd number works perfectly. You want number 9 and number 11 because you two will go to your locker at the same time. You have one locker in between you. The doors are open. That becomes a nice barrier. And, it's not a big deal, but it helps. We've added an additional lunch block, so that allows us to have a far less crowded cafeteria. We will still have our AVI food service. They're changing up their procedures, of course, to make sure everything is safe. But that'll be better for you too, because there'll be far less of a crowd in the cafeteria, and we'll space you out so that when you're in line, we're keeping some social distance between you. That would work out just fine. We need to stagger the dismissals for you, so that means you're going to get out of school a little bit early. We'll start dismissal around 2:30 every day, and Mr. Polis is working out the system for how that will work. But ordinarily we've been dismissing at 2:45. So there are some silver linings in this. I know adjusting to these new procedures won't be the easiest thing, but stay positive. Look on the bright side. So more time to change classes, less crowded corridors, less crowded cafeteria. You get out a little earlier. Of course, where am I getting that time from? I'm not extending the school day. I'm getting the time from Lion Time. So temporarily, we won't be able to have Lion Time. That will be impossible to manage. That's a great feature to the NDCL community, and the openness of that I just love. But every student here knows there will be no way to manage the social distancing during Lion Time. That just could not work. So temporarily, Lion Time will go away. We'll see. I look upon what we're doing to manage COVID-19 as all temporary measures. I surely do not think this is what it's going to look like for the end of time. It's what we have to do now, and I think managing that now together, cooperating now, is going to work just fine. What else can I tell you about social distancing? Well, we purchased portable plexiglass barriers to use in a classroom. In a classroom situation, thanks to the new furniture, really, because it's all very mobile, we can space you out more than we did in the past. And Mrs. Teeples and Sister Michelle have done a great job balancing and keeping class sizes as low as we can keep them. But you're still going to have a good number of kids in the classroom. We can space it out because all this furniture moves. That's a good feature. Didn't think of that last year when we bought it, that we would need to move the furniture because of a pandemic. But we can easily space it out. But there are going to be times when you're going to want to be talking to somebody else. I can envision a discussion in a religion class. I can imagine a discussion in an English class where you're working in a small group, where these portable barriers are going to be just the ticket. Kind of cool. And it just goes like that. So set it up on the desk. The other person's on the other side. And it's, portable, so you're going to have this up all the time. You might want it up all the time. Just, keep your own little bubble. But I think it's a good temporary measure which allows you to have the face-to-face dialogue without the fear that you would potentially spread COVID-19. So that's social distancing, what I could share with you at this point. There's a lot more to this. We'll share it with you step by step. It's like Jesus said in the gospel, I have much more to tell you. You just can't bear it now. Okay, and that's very true. Last thing I want to talk to you about is really what are we going to do should there be a school shutdown for a prolonged period of time? Remember back on March 13th when we learned that school would shut down, that hit us suddenly. That just was boom, it happened and we went to it. At that time, I did not require, nor did I expect, that we would follow a daily schedule of lessons and classes. I didn't say we're following the blue day schedule, the gold day schedule. And I did that for a reason. Because of the suddenness of that shutdown, I didn't know what that meant for your lives. I didn't know what that meant in terms of family life. I didn't know what that meant in terms of work schedules with your parents and perhaps your own work schedule. Some of you became the breadwinner in the house because you were the one who could go out to work, but your parents could not. In other cases, what I was thinking about was technology use and childcare. Some of you had to be taking care of younger siblings and you really couldn't be, in scheduled classes. So I did not impose that kind of rigid schedule because quite honestly, I felt that was asking too much, too soon from you and your family. Of course, now things are different. We're not going to have a sudden shutdown if one were to occur again because we know what could happen. We know how it works. So we have a plan in place that in the event that the governor or other health authorities would close all schools, or maybe just Notre Dame Cathedral Latin in particular, or maybe just schools in Geauga County, I have no idea how that might work, but we have a plan in place that we would indeed have daily live instruction following our normal blue day, gold day pattern. So you would have blocks 1 through 4 on a blue day, 5 through 8 on a gold day. We would rotate through for as long as the shutdown lasted, and you would have live class meetings with your teachers and your other classmates. We're still working on which platform we will use. There are many out there. We have Blackboard Collaborate. A lot of you didn't care for that because it doesn't show all the faces all at one time. There's Zoom, there's WebEx, there are others. We're researching them, pricing them. We'll have one in place. Hopefully we're not going to need it, but we'll have it just in case we do need it. And then school will continue in an interactive, live way. That I think will be a huge plus. You'll be expected to participate. Well, you'll want to participate. It was lonely for most people during the shutdown, and you cannot school can't be correspondence school. And I realized that was a downside to what we did in the spring. I don't know that I would have done it differently, but I know I will do it differently going into the future. So we have the schedule. That's in the plan that I've shared with you. So you'll be able to see it. So in the event that we get a shutdown order, you already know the plan. You know what we're going to do. Blackboard will continue to be an important resource for us, for teachers to get things out to you, for you to submit work, for all kinds of other academic functions. But we'll also have the live instructional component every single day for just about every single class in the event of a shutdown. I think that will be a huge plus. So those are some highlights. I do hope you're going to take a careful look at every aspect of this plan. I want you to read it carefully. Don't assume things. Read it carefully. Discuss it as a family. I've provided a link in an email I'm sending to all parents where you can provide feedback. This is a draft plan. We got a month before school starts. There's time to tweak this, modify it, and adjust it. I'm sending it to you now as a draft. If there are things that aren't clear, we can clarify them. If there are things that we missed that you need to know, we can add them. If there are other suggestions you have, other questions you have, the online form gives you a chance to do just that. So I would welcome that feedback. It's our school. We're in this together. And the more we have that mindset, that we are in this together. We talk about transforming the world. Leaders who transform the world by living the truth in love. Well, guys, here's the truth. There's a pandemic out there. And we got to figure out the most loving way of responding. And the most loving way to respond is to keep ourselves and everybody else around us as safe as possible, using the best information we have available to us. And of course, that information changes, but that's what leaders do. You learn from circumstances. I just shared with you how we're going to do, shutdown lessons differently than we did before. Well, you learn. I learned. That's a good part of the process. So study this and give the feedback on that online form. That will help. Finally, I know that this entire pandemic is really like a huge storm. It's a storm of information. Sometimes you don't know what to believe. It's a storm of pressure on people, economic pressure, people worrying about their businesses, worrying about their jobs, worrying about their income. That is a huge part of the storm. It's an emotional storm as people are worried about their health, worried about their loved ones' health, worried about their colleagues' health, especially those first responders, frontline workers, those who are working in our hospitals and our healthcare professions, really stressed about all of this. It's a storm. My challenge to you is this. In this storm, I see really two choices. You can be the lightning, or you can be a lightning rod. I encourage you to be a lightning rod. Don't be the lightning. Don't be the person whose reaction to all of this storm inflames the situation, burns up the situation, blows up the situation, the way a bolt of lightning does when it hits something. Strive to be the lightning rod. Strive to be the person in the room, the person in the family that takes that energy, this swirling storm all around us. Take that energy, absorb it, transform it, do something good with it. Transform the world by living the truth in love. It's not easy. Believe me. Ask my wife. There are days I'm the lightning and not the lightning rod because you just can't take everything that's coming at you. And there's just so much going on with this pandemic, and it's changing our lives. That is stressful. That's the storm. Strive to be the lightning rod. Best way I could encourage you to do that is have a prayerful perspective on all of it. Pray. Meditate. Find the loving presence of God in it all. Better, be the loving presence of God in it all. To the person sitting next to you, they may be separated by this, and they may be separated by this, but we're not separated by this. Be the lightning rod. I can't wait for all of you to come back.
When my hopes and dreams are far from me and I'm running out of faith, I see the future I picture slowly fade away. And when the tears of pain and heartache are pouring down my face, I find my peace in Jesus' name. In the eye of the storm, you remain in control.